I got to do a drawing of 12 players. And we're going to do this by rolling this little baby right over here. Put it on this camera. And then here are the contestants that we've got. We've got, I'm going to do it while putting it in, of course. We've got myself. I'm the commissioner of this football league. Then we've got my friend Albert, Godwin. Then we got Anthony. Got our friend Jaime. They're both brothers, by the way. My friend Nelson. Mike. Craig, who is the biggest critic of me, by the way, and of my Mariners takes. Alex. We got Dan. Epic C. And Max. Epic C decided to keep his name undisclosed. But right now, we are going to do the drumming. And then tell me when to stop. I have the audience that's going to tell me when to stop. 3, 4, 5. Oh, I was already told to stop. Okay. And now it is time to conduct the drawing of who will get the number 1 pick. And I will not even look at the names. And my audience is making sure that I'm not even looking at any of these names at this time. All right. Now, the 12th pick in this year's draft will be made by Mike. Mike, after a 5-2 start, ended up losing 6 of 7, missing the playoffs by just 1 game. All right. The 11th pick in this year's draft will be made by Albert. And Albert, who had a 7-2 start, struggled in his last 6 games, losing the top seed, but it would advance in the semifinals, but would have get obliterated by myself, yours truly. Thank you, Albert. Gotta make the volume a little quieter. All right. We've got the 10th overall pick will be made by Alex. Alex, who had a rough start at the beginning of the season, picked it up a little bit later, but it wasn't enough to make the playoffs. The 9th pick in this year's draft will be made by Epic C. And Epic C was known to be the unluckiest player in fantasy football history, and I'll tell you why. He scored the most points in the season, but wasn't enough to make the playoffs. The 8th overall pick will be made by Anthony. Anthony, who was really insistent on me making this lottery happen at a much sooner time. But let's see what he did last season. Anthony, the man known for his clever names, usually a second placer, but would lose in the semifinals to Dan. And some of his creative names were Lights, Alvin Kamara, and Action, Brown Lives Matter, mixing with a Young Ho Koo. Yep, that couldn't get better than that. And then I think last year his name was second place. The 7th lucky pick in this year's draft will be made by myself, the controversial commissioner and the defending champion who won the tournament by the narrowest margin of victory. It was 0.01. And if you don't believe me, I will go ahead and show you how that went. Take a look at it. That's how close it was. Look how close that freaking was. 91.7 to 91.6. And yes, he is still upset about that. Now back to the draft. And now the 6th pick of this year's draft will be made by Nelson. Nelson, after a 2-1 start, ended up losing 11 in a row for the rest of the season, finishing last in the league. And now the 5th pick in this year's draft should be made by Max. Max, as the 5th pick, he is a 3-time champion, including one from the season before, had a 5-game losing streak, arguably killing his season. And the 4th pick in this year's draft will be made by Dan. Dan, who made it all the way to the finals, ended up losing by 0.1, and he is clearly still not over it. If you're wondering who this is, that's him. Still not happy about it. And now we got down to picks 1, 2, and 3. We got Craig, Jaime, and Godwin that are in contention for the number 1 pick. The 3rd pick in this year's draft will be made by Craig. Craig, who was dangling with a 5-5 record, won 4 straight to finish the season, only to lose to Anthony in the quarterfinals. And now, the number 2 pick in this year's draft will be made by Godwin. Godwin, who is a rookie for this season, he's just joining. The previous guy that he is replacing was Mike, who had a 2-7 start, followed up with a 4-game winning streak, but lost on the final day, losing out on the playoffs, which means the number 1 pick in this draft will be made by Jaime. And Jaime, who narrowly made the playoffs, suffered in the quarterfinals to Commissioner Joe. And there you have it. That is the order of this draft. Number 12 will be made by Mike. Number 11, Albert. Number 10, Alex. Number 9, Epic C. Number 8, we got Anthony. Number 7, got myself, Joe. Number 6, Nelson. Number 5, Max. Number 4, Dan. Number 3, Craig. Number 2, Godwin. And number 1, Jaime.